Did you know that while white children in America log into Zoom classrooms with iPads, millions of African children are walking barefoot for miles, just for the chance to sit on a cracked cement floor and learn the alphabet from a single textbook? Shared by 30 students, this is not just a gap, it's an educational apartheid. In a world that sends billionaires to space, why are there still villages in Africa without chalk, let alone internet access? Why is the birthright of a white child in the West considered a guarantee, while the hopes of a black child in Africa are treated like a charity case? Look around. When was the last time your news feed told you about a school in Uganda collapsing? When did your government raise concern about children in Burkina Faso being forced out of classrooms by conflict, poverty, or politics? African children do have the right to education. Every treaty, every UN declaration, every speech about universal access says so. But in reality, that right is denied, delayed, or destroyed. It's not a question of capacity. It's a question of care. America spends more on military funding in one day than most African nations spend on education in a year. A white child in Boston can change schools because the cafeteria food isn't gluten-free. Meanwhile, a child in Malawi studies under a tree because the schoolhouse was never rebuilt after the rains came and washed away the only classroom. This is not accidental, it's engineered neglect, because when a system keeps an entire continent undereducated, it keeps that continent dependent, and dependency is profitable. That's the ugly truth no one wants to say out loud. Why do we pretend Africa's children are less capable? Why do we allow donor nations to offer aid with one hand and extract resources with the other, leaving nothing behind but broken chalk and shattered futures? Why is the voice of an African child less loud in the halls of policy and power? We scream for justice when schools are attacked in the West, and we should. But where is the outrage when Boko Haram abducts schoolgirls in Nigeria? When mining companies build fences around land that once held classrooms, when droughts leave children too hungry to think, let alone study? Where is the UN when a teacher in a South Sudanese village is forced to teach 70 kids with no supplies and no pay? Where is the education is a human right chant when black African children are involved? Or are those slogans only printed in English for Western rallies? And yet, despite it all, despite hunger, war, floods, colonization and neglect, African children still rise. They recite lessons under candlelight. They write on slates with broken pencils. They share stories, solve math problems in the dust, and hold on to dreams bigger than the skies above them. They are not waiting to be saved. They are fighting to be seen. And their fight is not a cry for pity. It's a demand for justice. A demand that says, we are here, we matter, we belong in classrooms, in universities, in boardrooms, in labs, on the front lines of innovation. They are the future, but we must ask, what are we doing to protect their present? How long will the world be silent? How long will the global North pat itself on the back for building one school while blocking trade, draining talent, and exporting instability? If education is truly a right, not a privilege, then where is the action? Where is the outrage? Where is the accountability? It is time to stop pretending that charity is enough. It is time to stop accepting global inequality as a natural order. Every African child has the same right to education as any child born in New York, London, or Paris. That right is not negotiable. It's not optional. It's sacred. And it's overdue. If the world continues to ignore this truth, then history will not forget. It will remember the silence. It will remember who had the power to speak but chose to scroll. And it will remember those who stood up. Because the truth is this: when African children are denied education, the whole world loses. Their brilliance, their inventions, their voices, their visions are buried under the weight of willful ignorance. But it's not too late. Not yet. This is a call to conscience, a call to every teacher, policymaker, parent, leader, and citizen. Education is not a Western luxury. It is a global necessity. And until every African child is given what is rightfully theirs, a desk, a teacher, a future, we cannot call this world just. We cannot call it civilized. We cannot call it human. So ask yourself, would you accept this for your child? Then why should they?